Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf. 2 videos in one day. You poor people, you have to suffer. But this is a discussion video that was inspired by a relatively new tag done by Olive over at the book. The Bougie Booktuber tag, and that the questions of this tag are all about money. And thank you, Olive, for tagging me. I will do the tag. But there are a couple of questions that relate to the price of books and what is reasonable and who sets the price and who earns money. And I thought it's just the tag, if I answer those questions within the tag, it's just too long. So I decided to do a separate video all about book prices. Not prizes for a change, but prices. Because I think this information that I can give you might come in handy if you want to join the discussion. If you don't know, I'm an author myself. I publish with just traditional publishers. So this video is not about self-publishing or self-published books. I have no idea about that, and the book price is there, but it's just about traditional publishing. So let's start with you buying a new book, not necessarily a newly published book, but just a new book from a bookseller, whether it's Amazon or whether it's a bookstore or a book depository or whatever. If you buy a new book, then 3 groups of people basically earn money with it. That's, of course, the author, plus an agent if the author has one, the bookseller, and the publisher. And if you buy a book for, let's say, $20 or euros or whatever currency you buy the book in, but let's stick with dollars. If you buy a book for $20, you can roughly say that the publisher will earn the biggest portion of it, $10. $8 is for the bookseller and $2 is for the author and the agent, because the author gets roughly, I mean, there are variations, and if you're a very famous author, you will get better conditions, but roughly, on average, you can say 10% of the retail price is for the author and his or her agent. The author has to pay the agent from the own earnings. So if I get $2 for per book, then I have to pay 10% of that to my agent. Anyway, so $20 you pay, 10 of those goes to the publisher, 8 goes to the bookseller, and 2 goes to the author / agent. And when I say earnings for booksellers and publishers, the 10 and the $8 respectively, that's not profit, because they have to pay from that portion they get. They have to pay all the cost plus have a profit if they do business well. So let's take the publisher, $10. They have to pay their rent of their office spaces, their personnel, the book design, the printing, the shipping, everything that incurs as cost in order to make a book, except for paying the author and the bookseller, has to be paid from that $10. Same goes for the bookseller, of course. The $8 from the 20 that is for the bookseller has to pay the rent, the personnel, any advertising or whatever that they incur as cost. They have to pay that from this $8 and hopefully have a little bit left. Mostly, if publishers and booksellers do business well, about 20% will be real profit. So when a publisher decides to publish a book, they will have calculations, standard calculations, algorithms, how much of the overall cost is attributed to each book, and then they will set a certain price plus the portion for the author and the bookseller, and that will sum up, for instance, for $20, and that's your retail price. Now, I have to say that in continental Europe, this retail price that is set by the publisher is also the price that you pay in every bookstore, because we have fixed prices. In the UK and the US, it's different. So if the bookseller gets a book for $10 and the retail price that the publisher has set is 20, they can decide to sell it for less or more. Because there's no fixed book prices in the US and the UK, and that's why you have different prices when you go to bookstores. That's not this in Germany. Whatever book I buy, whatever bookstore I go, books all cost the same everywhere. Amazon is a different topic. We will come to that a little bit later. So if you want to have a discussion about whether books are too expensive, printed books that you buy in a bookstore, you see from the calculation, $20, 10 goes to the publisher, 8 goes to the bookseller, that there are two bigger players, and certainly the publisher who sets the retail price in the first place, even if in the UK and the US the bookseller can diverge from this price, but the publisher is should be the main focus if you think that books are too expensive. And I can certainly say that publishers, I have published enough books and had dealings with enough publishers in various countries so that I can say from my experience that I would say most of the publishers, and certainly the bigger publishing groups, but also some of the smaller publishers, independent publishers, most of them have not yet arrived in the 21st century. That's for sure. They have huge personnel cost for the publicist and the marketing department, and they don't know how to market a book or sell a book profitably in the digital age. They try to cut cost, but mainly what they do is then they cut cost on top, which means the most expensive people, because personnel is the biggest portion of their cost, so they cut editors, which is not really a good idea because that means the quality of the books suffers. And you can see that if you buy a lot of new books, you often wonder, at least I often wonder, is where was the editor in this? But anyway, so if you want to have a discussion about book prices, I think we should mainly look at publishers, how they spend their $10, what kind of cost they make, and whether these costs are valid, whether you get as an author and as a buyer, whether you get your money's worth. And I think certainly if you look at marketing and selling, publishers, they don't do a very good job because they have no idea how to market books in the digital age. Mainly they send out books to book reviewers and hope that something will pick up. They have most of them, even the bigger ones, they have no idea how to use Twitter or Instagram or Facebook even. It's a mystery to me why they wouldn't, try to arrive in the 21st century, but that's just the way it is, and it's a discussion that we should have, and that is certainly valid to have and to look at publishers and how they do business in the 21st century. The next topic I want to briefly touch is Amazon. And there's a lot to say about Amazon, and I have a lot of opinions about Amazon, and I'm not going to tell you not to buy from Amazon, not at all. But I want to limit myself here to the question, why are books mostly, let's say, cheaper if you buy them on Amazon? First of all, Amazon is not even in continental Europe. So if I buy from Amazon.de, the German Amazon, they are not bound by this book price binding law. So they can just set their prices however they want. If we take the example of the $20 retail book, they will very often sell it at a much lower price. If you go to a bookstore and buy a new book and it's $20, hardly ever you will have the same price on Amazon. And even further, they often undercut even their own profit margin. So if they get the book from the publisher for $10, they might even sell it for $8 or maybe 11, just a very small, tiny profit margin. Why do they do that? because Amazon's philosophy, their company philosophy, is not in the first place to make profit. They didn't even make any profit in the first 13 years of their existence. And if you look at them now, they do make profits, but it's relatively, if you look at the retail portion of what they do, it's a relatively small margin. Because their philosophy is growth and market share. So they will undercut prices that you have to pay in a normal retail store, and that's the same whether it's books or any other items, in order to make the customer buy the cheaper product, the same product for a cheaper price, so that they can grow and that they can get market share. So it's no wonder that you would always find your book cheaper on Amazon. And if the author gets a percentage of the retail price fixed by the publisher, so in our example, the 10% of the $20, then it doesn't matter for the author whether Amazon sells it for 10, because the author will still get the $2. But most publishers have different deals with Amazon, also with regard to what the author gets. Also, that I just want to mention that, but it's a discussion, it's a complex discussion, maybe for a different time if you are interested. But in general, I just wanted to explain why Amazon can sell books cheaper than a bookseller. If you don't want to make a profit, if you don't have to make a profit, you can, of course, sell your stuff cheaper. And the last topic I want to talk to you about is ebooks and the price of ebooks, because there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding partly, but also a lot of grief that ebooks are so expensive. And I can totally understand that. I mean, you don't even own the book when you quote unquote buy an ebook, which, by the way, the reason for that is not so much that people are evil, but that they want to protect property rights, because an ebook on your computer is, if it's really your property, you can easily copy it, give it to somebody else, a copy. So that is the reason behind why there is a license right, and you don't own the book, but you just have a lease on the book. But of course, that means that it's different from a printed book, and if you don't own it, it should certainly be cheaper. I completely agree with that. If we go back to the beginnings that some of you might remember of the ebook, you basically only had Amazon and the Kindle, and they, like I explained just a couple of minutes earlier, they wanted to grow on the ebook market, and they wanted to have as big as possible a market share, and they wanted to sell their Kindle, of course. So what they did is in the beginning, they made huge losses on ebooks, because they made ebooks really, really cheap. The typical 99-cent ebook, or the 1.99 ebook, in order to get people to buy the ebook, and then they had to buy the Kindle. So in the beginning, the first maybe 10 or 15 years of ebooks, Amazon and the Kindle, they had an almost 100% market share, 95%. And then other ebook sellers, Apple with the iBook, and Barnes & Noble with their Nook, they wanted to break into that market, and they offered publishers better deals. So they offered publishers the ability to fix the price for the ebook, so that the ebook seller couldn't diverge from that price. Let's say, I don't know, $15 or something. And Amazon had to follow suit in order not to lose the whole market share. So that's why ebooks at a certain point became much more expensive. And now the market share is about 65% for Amazon, and then the Nook and the iBook, they share the remaining 35%. But of course, this fixed price policy that is now common with ebooks, whether you buy them on Amazon or whether you buy them for your Nook or whether you use iBook, that doesn't explain why the ebook of a new title, for instance, still costs $15 and not like, I don't know, $5. And the argument that I heard, because I watched a lot of people who did the fabulous bougie booktube attack, the argument was always, well, it doesn't cost anything to produce the book, so why should it be so expensive? I mean, the ebook, so why should it be so expensive? And I think that is a bit of a misunderstanding, because the publisher only saves ebook compared to printed book, only saves the printing cost and the shipping cost, obviously. And these two items are mostly 2%, but never more than 5% of the overall cost that a publisher has in order to produce a book. So for an ebook, the publisher still has to pay the personnel, the editor, hopefully they have one, the marketing, the cover design, the rent of the office space, all the other costs that they have, and they just save printing and shipping. So 2, maximum 5%. So if a book is, the retail price of a printed book is $20, the publisher will set the ebook price at $15. Again, we can talk about whether publishers are water-headed companies and they should have a good look at what cost they make and whether they can do it more efficiently. No doubt. But the general misunderstanding that an ebook doesn't cost anything or almost anything to produce is just really not true. And the final question in this section of ebooks is, why then are ebooks it explains also, I think I should rather say, why ebooks, if you buy them on Amazon, why there is not such a huge difference between the printed book you can buy or the ebook. Because, as I explained, the ebook, sticking with our $20 printed book example, the ebook, the retailer price will be set by the publisher at $15. And Amazon has to stick with that. Otherwise, if they don't, the publisher would go to the competition. So the ebook price is fixed at $15. But the printed copy, Amazon can still set the price in the way that they want. So if the retail price was $20, they would probably, because the ebook is $15, they still want the ebook to be less expensive. So they want to, they would do the printed book maybe for $18 to be still cheaper than most other booksellers, but also more expensive than the $15 for the ebook. Sometimes they even have printed books that are less expensive than the ebook because they want to get these books out, so they would fix a really low price, as I explained before, because profit is not one of their main goals. So you have examples where the ebook is actually more expensive than the printed book, which doesn't, if you look at it, just without thinking about it, it doesn't make sense. But the fixed price of the ebook and the possibility for Amazon to lower the printed book prices, if you know that, then it does make sense. And I just remembered that there's one other thing that I didn't touch upon, which I should have done before I talked about ebooks, and that's used books. I buy used books all the time. I think it's fantastic. The only remark I wanted to make is that if you have to be aware, and I'm sure you are aware of the fact, but that the author doesn't get anything if you buy a used book, because it's not an additional copy that is sold. So these are at least my sort of preliminary remarks on book prices. I hope you found them useful. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know whether you are interested in any other topics that I didn't really talk about in this video to do with marketing and pricing and so forth. I'm really looking forward to your comments. and I'll see you all soon in the next one. Bye bye.